At a busy international airport terminal, an elderly black man in a well-worn military cap waits patiently in line at security. But the security officer doesn't see the man's service. And he doesn't just question him, he commands him to leave. He grabs the elderly man's arm, pulling him from the line as others watch, each word stripping away decades of service and respect. What the officer doesn't know is that this man holds rank far beyond what any security badge could match. And his silence, it isn't surrender, it's preparation. Would you stand by while someone's dignity is trampled? Tell us in the comments also. Hit like and subscribe. Atlanta International Airport hummed with the chaotic energy that only America's busiest travel hub could generate. Bodies weaved through security checkpoints, announcements echoed off polished floors, and beneath it all ran currents of tension, the kind that always simmered when thousands of strangers from different worlds collided in transit. Retired Colonel Thaddeus Washington moved through this chaos with the unhurried confidence of a man who'd navigated far worse. At 73, his tall frame remained military straight, despite the slight tremor in his left hand, a souvenir from Vietnam that no amount of time could erase. His chocolate-brown skin was etched with lines of history, and beneath his 101st Airborne cap, gray hair cropped close to his scalp. He wore his military service subtly but unmistakably, not as decoration, but as identity. The security line stretched back nearly 50 yards, but Thaddeus didn't mind. After 4 decades commanding men through jungles and deserts, patience came naturally. He adjusted his glasses and checked his boarding pass again. Gate C-17, flight to San Diego, where his first great-grandchild awaited. Behind him, young travelers fidgeted with phones, but Thaddeus simply stood, observing the familiar theater of American travel. Officer Raylan Curts patrolled the checkpoint area with the swagger of a man who mistook authority for respect. At 38, his muscular build filled out his TSA uniform a bit too perfectly, the kind of man who lifted weights less for health and more for intimidation. Curts had failed the police academy entrance exam twice before settling into airport security, and it showed in his demeanor, a chip on his shoulder barely concealed beneath his badge. Curts had already removed 3 passengers from line that morning, all of them brown-skinned, all for suspicious behavior that somehow only he could detect. The other TSA agents had learned to look away when Curts approached. Even his supervisor, Agent Valencia, had grown weary of the complaints that followed in Curts's wake. Now Curts's gaze fixed on Thaddeus, scanning him from military cap to sensible shoes. Something in the old man's dignified stillness irritated him, a calm that felt like defiance. Curts began moving toward the elderly gentleman, jaw tight, hand already reaching for his radio. Thaddeus noticed him coming, but didn't react. He'd recognized men like Curts in every war zone he'd ever entered. The only difference was the uniform. Have you ever been judged before they even knew your story? Tell us in the comments, and if you believe respect should be earned, not demanded, hit like and subscribe. You there, old-timer, Curts barked, cutting through the ambient noise of the security area. Step out of line. Thaddeus turned slowly, his movements deliberate. Is there a problem, officer? He asked, voice steady and deep with age. Curts stepped closer, towering over Thaddeus despite the older man's height. I said step out of line. Now. His voice carried just enough volume to draw attention from nearby travelers, who glanced uncomfortably before looking away. Thaddeus didn't move. His eyes, clear despite his years, held Curts's gaze with neither fear nor anger. Just assessment, the way one might study an unpredictable recruit. Your hearing failing you? Curts moved closer. This is a security checkpoint, not a retirement home. What would you do if someone humiliated you publicly? Would you stay calm or fight back instantly? Drop your answer below, also hit like and subscribe. Sir, I have a flight to catch. Thaddeus said quietly, showing his boarding pass. "I've been cleared through pre-check." But Curts wasn't interested in documents or explanations. He reached forward and grabbed Thaddeus's arm, fingers digging into the wool of his jacket. "When I give an order, you follow it. That's how this works." The sudden touch sparked something in the terminal. A woman gasped. A businessman lowered his phone. Even the perpetually bored TSA agents at the scanner looked up. Thaddeus didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Instead, he looked down at Curts's hand on his arm with the peculiar calm of a man who'd faced far worse than an overzealous security officer. "Son," he said, voice still measured but carrying an unmistakable weight, "you might want to remove your hand." "Or what, Grandpa?" Curts tightened his grip, lips curling into something between a smile and a snarl. "You gonna call your nurse?" A TSA supervisor had noticed the commotion now, was moving toward them with concern etched across her face. Agent Valencia, badge name clearly visible, approached with caution. "Officer Curts, is there an issue here?" "Just removing a security risk," Curts replied without looking at her, eyes still locked on Thaddeus. "This one's being uncooperative." Through it all, Thaddeus remained still, his breathing unchanged. Only the slight straightening of his spine betrayed any reaction at all. "I don't see any risk here," Valencia said, taking in Thaddeus's military cap, his calm demeanor. "Sir, do you have your ID and boarding pass?" Before Thaddeus could answer, Curts stepped between them. "I've made my assessment. He's coming with me for additional screening." Valencia hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with Curts's behavior, but unwilling to challenge him publicly. The line behind them had grown silent. Cell phones had emerged, recording the encounter. Someone whispered, "That's not right." Another voice, "He's with the airborne." Curts either didn't hear or didn't care. He tugged Thaddeus's arm again, harder this time. "Move it, old man. Security room. Now." Thaddeus finally spoke, voice carrying just enough to be heard by those nearby. "My name is Colonel Thaddeus Washington, United States Army, retired, and you, son, are making a serious mistake. If you were standing in Colonel Washington's shoes, would you show patience or demand respect? Comment your choice below. And if you stand for dignity at any age, like and subscribe now." "Colonel?" Curts scoffed, but something flickered across his face, uncertainty quickly masked by doubling down. "Yeah, and I'm General Patton. Let's go now." "Officer Curts," Valencia interjected more firmly, "I need to see what's happening here." "What's happening?" came a new voice. "Is harassment." The crowd parted to reveal a tall man in his 40s wearing a sharp suit and airline captain's wings on his lapel. Captain Devon Lockhart moved with authority through the security line, his presence commanding immediate attention. "This gentleman," Lockhart continued, gesturing toward Thaddeus, "is not just a retired colonel. He's the keynote speaker at our Veterans in Aviation conference this weekend in San Diego, and he's my personal guest." Curts's grip loosened, but his expression hardened. "That doesn't exempt him from security protocols." "No," Lockhart agreed, "but it exempts him from being manhandled without cause." He turned to Thaddeus. "Colonel Washington, are you all right, sir?" Thaddeus nodded once, dignified even in the chaos that swirled around him. Curts's radio crackled. Another voice cut through the tension. "Officer Curts, please report to the security office immediately." The airport's head of security had arrived, drawn by the growing crowd and the unmistakable sight of phones recording what was quickly becoming a PR nightmare. "This isn't over," Curts muttered, releasing Thaddeus's arm but leaning in close. "You people always think you're special." Thaddeus met his gaze directly. "Son, the only special thing here is your remarkable ability to make the wrong choice when the right one's standing right in front of you. If someone crossed a line they couldn't take back, would you call them out? Or let the world decide? Drop your answer in the comments. Hit like and subscribe to the channel if this hit you too." The head of security, a woman named Director Imani Rhodes, approached with the controlled urgency of someone accustomed to diffusing situations. Her quick assessment took in everything: Thaddeus's military bearing, Curts's aggressive stance, the crowd's thinly veiled hostility, and the growing number of recording phones. "Officer Curts," she said, her voice carrying unexpected authority for her slight frame. "You're relieved. Report to my office, now." Curts's face flushed red. "Ma'am, I was conducting standard security. That wasn't a suggestion." Rhodes cut him off cleanly. "Agent Valencia will escort you." As Valencia led a seething Curts away, Rhodes turned to Thaddeus. "Colonel Washington, I sincerely apologize for this incident. We'd be grateful if you'd step aside with me for a moment." Thaddeus nodded, his composure unshaken. "Of course." Captain Lockhart stepped forward. "Director Rhodes, Colonel Washington needs to make his flight." "He will," Rhodes assured him. "But first, I believe proper respect should be shown." She gestured to a small room off the main concourse, not the Stark security office where Curts had intended to take Thaddeus, but the VIP lounge typically reserved for diplomats and executives. As they walked, Rhodes leaned closer to Thaddeus. "My father served in the 101st as well, sir. Different war, same values." For the first time since the confrontation began, Thaddeus's expression softened slightly. "Served with good men, then?" "The best," Rhodes replied. "Which is why I need to address what happened here properly. Not hidden away, but visibly. Do you understand?" Thaddeus nodded slowly. "Accountability matters most when people are watching." "When everyone's watching, would you keep pushing for truth, or let it go? What would you do?" Share your decision in the comments. Also hit like and subscribe. Inside the VIP lounge, Director Rhodes didn't waste time. She activated the internal communication system that connected to every security station in the airport. "This is Director Rhodes. As of this moment, Officer Raylan Curts is suspended pending full investigation into violation of protocols and passenger harassment. All security personnel will report for mandatory bias training refresher by end of week." She turned to Thaddeus, who stood observing her with quiet assessment. "That's the beginning, Colonel, not the end. But I want you to know immediate action is being taken." Through the glass walls of the lounge, they could see Curts being escorted away, his face twisted in disbelief as his badge was collected. "He'll fight this," Thaddeus observed, not with satisfaction, but with the weariness of a man who'd seen this story play out before. "Men like him always do." "Let him," Rhodes replied. "The cameras caught everything, as did 24 passengers." Captain Lockhart, who had remained nearby, checked his watch. "Colonel, we should get you to your gate." Rhodes nodded. "I'll personally escort you, but first—" She pulled out her phone and made a brief call. Minutes later, the door opened, and an airport administrator entered carrying a leather folder. "Colonel Washington," Rhodes said formally, "Atlanta International would like to extend our deepest apologies for today's incident. We've upgraded your ticket to first class, and we'd be honored if you would accept this invitation to return as our guest speaker for our security staff training program." Thaddeus accepted the folder with dignity. "The invitation I'll consider. The lesson, that's already been delivered." Would you let injustice slide if it kept the peace, or would you risk everything to call it out? Share your choice in the comments. Like and subscribe if you believe silence is never the answer. As Director Rhodes escorted Thaddeus and Captain Lockhart through the terminal, they became the center of an unusual ripple effect. Security personnel stood straighter. Travelers who had witnessed the confrontation nodded respectfully. Some even applauded quietly as they passed. "You've got quite a fan club forming, Colonel," Lockhart remarked. Thaddeus shook his head slightly. "Not looking for fans, just looking to catch my flight." But the incident had already expanded beyond their small group. Near Gate C-17, a cluster of passengers were huddled around phones, watching footage of the confrontation that had already been uploaded to social media. "Hampa respect." The colonel was trending locally. A young TSA agent approached them, nervousness evident in his stance. "Sir, Colonel, I just wanted to say, most of us aren't like Curts. I'm sorry for what happened." Thaddeus studied the young man. What's your name, son? Williams, sir. Darius Williams. Well, Agent Williams, one bad apple doesn't spoil my view of the bunch, but it does make me wonder who's minding the orchard. They continued toward the gate, but as they rounded the corner, they found themselves face to face with an unexpected sight. Curts, still in uniform despite his suspension, blocking their path. Enjoying your special treatment, old man? He sneered. The professional mask completely dropped now. His eyes were red-rimmed with humiliation and rage. This is what's wrong with the system. Bend over backwards for complaints. Rhodes stepped forward. Officer Curts, you are currently trespassing. Security has been called. I gave 20 years to this job, Curts continued, as if she hadn't spoken, his focus entirely on Thaddeus. 20 years keeping people safe, and this is how they treat me? Because some ancient history veteran got his feelings hurt? Thaddeus regarded him calmly. Son, I commanded men younger than you in 3 different conflicts, sent some home in boxes. The ones who made it back, the good ones, they understood something you clearly don't. And what's that? Curts spat. That the uniform isn't about power. It's about service. Thaddeus's voice remained level, but carried throughout the now silent gate area. You wear that uniform like it gives you the right to demand respect, but it only gives you the responsibility to earn it. 2 airport police officers approached from behind Curts, but Thaddeus raised a hand, asking them to wait. 20 years, you say you served? I did 40. And in all those years, I learned that a man who uses his position to intimidate those he sees as beneath him isn't fit to serve anything except his own ego. Curts's face contorted. You self-righteous. I'm not finished, Thaddeus continued, his voice gaining strength. I've faced bullets, bombs, and bureaucrats with more courage than you've shown today. A real security officer would have seen an elderly veteran and offered assistance, not aggression. You didn't see me as a threat. You saw me as a target. And that, son, is why you failed today. The gate area had gone completely silent. Even the constant airport announcements seemed to have paused. The police officers waited, recognizing the greater authority at work in this moment. Curts stood frozen, the truth of Thaddeus's words stripping away his last defenses. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its edge. You don't understand what it's like. I understand exactly what it's like to wear a uniform, Thaddeus replied. The difference is, I never forgot what it stood for. With a nod from Rhodes, the police officers finally stepped forward, taking Curts gently but firmly by the arms. As they led him away, the terminal erupted in applause, not mocking, but affirming. A recognition of truth spoken plainly. Thaddeus didn't acknowledge the applause. He simply checked his watch and turned to Lockhart. I believe they're boarding my flight now, Captain. What would you do if the whole room watched you bring someone to justice? Stay strong or show mercy. Let's talk about it also. Hit like and subscribe. As they approached the gate, a woman in a crisp airline uniform hurried toward them. Colonel Washington, I'm Jamie Nkosi, the flight manager. We've been briefed on the situation. She glanced uncomfortably at Director Rhodes. There's a complication. What kind of complication? Lockhart asked. The flight crew, Nkosi explained. They're asking if the colonel would be willing to address them before boarding. They want to show their respect properly. Rhodes looked concerned. The colonel has been through enough today. Perhaps we should just get him on board with minimal fuss. All eyes turned to Thaddeus, who had remained quiet during this exchange. The decision was his alone. Slip quietly onto the plane and avoid further spectacle, or step into yet another moment of public attention. Thaddeus considered briefly, then spoke with quiet certainty. Sometimes visibility matters more than comfort, Director Rhodes. He turned to Nkosi. I'd be honored to meet the crew. As they walked toward the jet bridge, Rhodes leaned in. Colonel, there's media gathering in the terminal. This incident has gone viral. The airport PR team is suggesting we issue a statement about your patience and forgiveness. Thaddeus stopped walking. Forgiveness? It would help smooth things over, Rhodes explained. Show there's no lingering ill will. Thaddeus looked at her directly. Director Rhodes, I respect your position, but I won't pretend this was just a misunderstanding to make your PR job easier. What happened today wasn't about me. It's about every person who gets mistreated because someone with a badge thinks they can get away with it. Rhodes nodded slowly. I understand, sir. Good, Thaddeus replied, because real respect isn't given in private apologies. It's shown in public actions. Would you show mercy to someone who never showed you respect? Or would you let the consequences do the talking? Let us know in the comments also. Like and subscribe. The flight crew had assembled at the gate, captain, first officer, and flight attendants standing in a loose formation that betrayed their military backgrounds. As Thaddeus approached, they straightened imperceptibly. The captain stepped forward. Colonel Washington, on behalf of our crew, we wanted to personally welcome you aboard. He extended his hand. Many of us served before joining the airline. It's an honor to have you with us today. Thaddeus shook the offered hand. The honor's mine, Captain. As they spoke, Thaddeus noticed a young family nearby, a mother trying to calm a fussing toddler while juggling luggage, her teenage son looking anxiously at the boarding gate. The woman kept glancing their way, clearly worried about missing the boarding call while the crew was occupied with this impromptu ceremony. Without hesitation, Thaddeus turned to the family. Looks like you could use a hand, ma'am. The woman looked startled, then grateful. We're fine, really. Just a bit overwhelmed. My grandchildren were the same at that age, Thaddeus said, approaching slowly so as not to startle the child. May I? The woman nodded, and Thaddeus crouched down, with some effort, to eye level with the toddler. What's your name, young man? He asked gently. Marcus, the child hiccuped between sobs. Well, Marcus, I'm Thaddeus, and I have something important to tell you. He leaned in conspiratorially. Airplanes are magic. They carry us above the clouds to see people we love. Are you going to see someone you love? The child nodded, tears subsiding. Grandma. That's wonderful. Grandmas give the best hugs, don't they? Thaddeus stood carefully, wincing slightly at the stiffness in his knees. To the mother, he said, May I help you with your boarding? The entire gate watched as Colonel Thaddeus Washington, the man who had just stood firmly against injustice, now gently carried a toddler down the jet bridge, the child's head resting trustingly on his shoulder. Behind them, Director Rhodes turned to an assistant who had been frantically taking notes for the pending press statement. Forget the scripted response, she said quietly. Just describe exactly what you just saw. As Thaddeus settled the family into their seats before continuing to his own, Captain Lockhart leaned toward Rhodes. That right there? That's why Curts could never understand men like the Colonel. He leads by example, not by force. Rhodes nodded. Your conference is about veterans in aviation? Yes, why? Because I think Atlanta International just found its new advisor for security training. If someone crossed the line and humiliated you, would you have forgiven them, or made sure the world saw what they did? Drop your take in the comments, also hit like and subscribe. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Thaddeus gazed out the window at the patchwork landscape below, his reflection ghosted against the clouds. A flight attendant approached with a glass of water. Colonel Washington, there's a call for you on the aircraft phone. It's the Atlanta Airport Director. Thaddeus accepted the handset with a questioning look. Colonel Washington, came a new voice, older, more authoritative than Rhodes. This is Executive Director Hammond. I'm calling to personally apologize for the incident at our facility today. I appreciate that, Director, Thaddeus replied simply. We've reviewed the security footage, Hammond continued. Officer Curts has been terminated, effective immediately. His supervisor has been placed on administrative leave pending review. Thaddeus said nothing, waiting. But that's not why I'm calling, Hammond added. I understand you're a keynote speaker at a veterans conference? That's correct. We'd like to invite you to speak at our Regional Security Training Summit next month. With compensation, of course. Your experience today, painful as it was, highlighted serious issues in our approach to security versus respect. Thaddeus considered the offer. I'm not interested in being a token, Director Hammond. Understood. We're offering you a position on our Civilian Oversight Committee. Real input, real authority, the kind that leads to real change. After the call ended, Thaddeus sat quietly, processing. The flight attendant returned. Everything all right, sir? Yes, he replied. Just thinking about how different paths can lead to the same destination. Sir? 40 years in uniform, fighting for respect and dignity, and somehow I'm still fighting the same battles, just in different terrain. 3 rows back, the young mother he'd helped earlier watched Thaddeus with curiosity. Her teenage son leaned over. Mom, isn't that the guy from the video? The one who stood up to that security officer? She nodded. Yes, that's him. He doesn't look like a hero, the boy observed. The mother smiled. That's exactly what heroes look like, Jamal. Not people seeking attention, people giving attention to what matters. As if sensing their conversation, Thaddeus turned slightly. The mother gave him a small nod of gratitude, not just for helping with her toddler, but for something larger, for showing her son what quiet strength looked like. Thaddeus nodded back, then returned to gazing out the window. He wasn't looking at the clouds anymore, but at his own reflection, a man who had spent decades standing tall so that others could stand taller. The battle wasn't over. It never would be. But today, at least, the right side had won. Some say forgiveness is strength. Others say it's surrender. If you were the judge today, would you forgive the antagonist or let him face justice fully? Tell us below. Like and subscribe, too. The camera holds on the plane soaring through blue skies, then dissolves to Thaddeus holding his great-grandchild for the first time in San Diego. Generations of strength, dignity, and persistence captured in a single frame. This wasn't about one security officer, one airport, one confrontation. This was about what happens when someone with nothing left to prove meets someone with everything left to learn. Real authority doesn't shout. It doesn't intimidate. It stands firm when tests come, and it lifts others when storms pass. Like Colonel Washington, we don't need to demand respect to deserve it. But when we stand for dignity, our own or others, we create ripples that travel farther than we can see. Because true justice doesn't begin with badges or titles. It begins in people who remember what power is for. If you enjoyed today's story, share and subscribe for more justice stories like this.